Culture and identity are very closely connected, and post-colonial theory views national independence as a fight for a national culture, a desire for nationhood as a cultural emotion. Like many colonised peoples, the Scots were sold the idea of a British or English identity. However, as many former colonies, now United Nations member states, discovered, this manufactured identity, which is the primary tool elites use to retain power, is a cultural illusion. Within the colonised territory, new forms of land development and imposed heritage narratives became normalised via the cultural recreation of the coloniser. Examples included land clearances with entire communities being removed and villages destroyed to be replaced by sheep. The process continues today with large Highland estates used as speculative investments by external tax-avoiding interests, limiting and preventing social and economic development of the people and nation. A further colonial tool employed in the domination of Scotland is demographic manipulation. Since the 1707 annexation and following the atrocities of the 18th century wars of independence, Scotland has endured centuries of clearances, evictions, transportation of people, export of endangered labour, and empire resettlement programmes. As a consequence, Scotland today has a vastly diminished indigenous population. In post-colonial theory, this is known as banishment of natives, although ethnic cleansing is the widely held scholarly term used today. In just 60 years between 1870 and 1930, 2 million people were shipped out of Scotland, almost half its then population. In total, some 4 million Scots have departed Scotland since annexation, which is the largest loss of population in Western Europe for a country of our size. The loss of Scots was at least 8 times that of English immigration. At the point of annexation, Scotland's population was 1/4 that of England. Today it is less than 1/10. And Scotland's population remained static at 5 million for much of last century, when natural growth should have seen at least 10 million. The majority of people settling in Scotland come from one country, England. Inbound flows markedly differ from outbound, mainly comprising middle-class English people given professional and managerial jobs in Scotland. This has resulted in an ethnic and cultural division of labour, with the social hierarchy favouring the dominant Anglophone culture. In effect, much of the Scottish population has been displaced, and institutions in Scotland are made Anglo-centric. The population of Scotland has recently been growing since 2000, but this is only through accelerated in-migration, again mostly from England. Scotland today has its lowest birth rate on record. Many Scots remain unable to bring up families due to low wages, lack of economic opportunity, and a chronic shortage of housing. Existing and new housing stock has been absorbed through increased in-migration and settlement of people from England, with excessive demand from our much larger, 10 times larger populated neighbour, bidding up house prices to unaffordable levels for Scots. Essentially, the conditions have now been created which prevent Scottish births, which means the Scots as a distinct people remain firmly in the process of perishing, as is their culture. Migration is a matter reserved to Westminster and England as UK has administrative power. The long-term oppressions and manipulation of the Scottish population, including large-scale displacement and replacement of indigenous Scots, which can be considered ethnic cleansing, as well as cultural genocide, may be regarded as a continuous colonial process not yet ending. Let us also consider the essential features of dependency. Politically, every attempt to assert Scottish self-determination through democratic means, through referenda or electoral mandates, has been selectively managed, blocked, or ignored by Westminster, or deemed legally ineffective by the England as UK Supreme Court. Scotland is governed from outside. Its national identity is suppressed. Its resources are controlled without accountability, and its democratic will is subordinated to an external majority. This is precisely the pattern of dependency and domination that the United Nations has recognised in many decolonisation cases since 1945. In this situation, there is also a gross misrepresentation in that the United Kingdom has consistently portrayed Scotland as a willing partner in a democratic union, not as a colonised nation. This false narrative has prevented Scotland from being listed as a non-self-governing territory, shielding the UK from legal obligations it would otherwise incur under Article 73 of the UN Charter. And finally, in regard to psychological subjugation, domination by another culture results in a people developing a colonial mindset, which is a feeling of cultural inadequacy, including self-loathing, also related to internalized racism. Post-colonial theory tells us that colonialism is based on psychology, and with colonial oppression resulting in a mental pathology that's suffered by a colonized people. This colonial condition is viewed as a disease of the mind for which the only remedy is liberation. Independence and decolonization therefore bring about a need for the oppressed group to decolonize the mind, as well as reclaiming sovereignty and self-recovery of culture, ending economic plunder and external political and cultural control in order to become fully liberated. To summarise, the Scottish people remain subject to features of oppression that run parallel with colonial growth. This includes external political control, plunder of economic resource, and domination by an alien culture and values. The reality is an Anglophone cultural hegemony and associated racial and ethnic hierarchy. It is these oppressions that give rise to an independence movement based on the solidarity of the oppressed ethnic group, the Scots. Economic exploitation and cultural domination have therefore combined to leave the Scottish people and nation diminished, underdeveloped, and in the process of perishing. Oppression is obscured via the cultural assimilation process and prevailing institutionalised colonial narrative. A colonised people are further subdued by the inevitable internalised racism accompanying a dominant racist ideology subordinating the indigenous ethnic group. And we should remember that colonialism always involves racism. And here today we unveil the reality, therefore, that the Scottish people's inalienable and lawful right to self-determination and independence demands decolonisation, the ending of the scourge of colonialism, as a matter of urgency. Thank you.